Welcome back to today's deep dive. Today is Thursday, July 30 2025. And this is our 22nd deep dive into critical global insights. Really wouldn't be here without you, our amazing listeners. So thank you truly for tuning in. We're about to jump right into it, so let's make the most of your time. If you haven't already, please do follow us on our YouTube channel, Next Site Intelligence, and also on Spotify. Just look us up, Deep Dive Intelligence Podcast. Your support really means the world. Okay. So let's take a look at today's intelligence report. Now, the incredible insights we're about to unpack today come from NextSight. They're a really amazing and dedicated intelligence company focusing squarely on global intelligence. And they've actually developed their own open source intelligence platform. It's called SiteConnect, and it's designed to help investigators all over the world. I really encourage you to check out their website. That's www.nextsite.com. NextSight provides these, meticulously detailed intelligence reports to its customers, and they can even customize them to fit your specific interests, giving you a real shortcut to being well informed.
That's right. And just to clarify for everyone listening, this is our regular daily deep dive. Today, we're specifically analyzing the intelligence brief for Wednesday, July 30, 2025. It's really a snapshot of a very complex, dynamic world.
Exactly. And before we dive into the news itself, it's really crucial, isn't it, to understand how this intelligence is assessed. The report uses specific flags for reliability and confidence. These are essentially our guideposts, to how much weight you should give the information.
Precisely. Think of them as a quick trust score, sort of. For source reliability, we use the Admiralty AF scale. A means the source is completely reliable, basically rock solid. B means usually reliable. C, fairly reliable. And, it goes down from there. F means you just can't judge it.
Okay.
Then for information confidence, it's a 1-6 scale. 1 is key confirmed by independent sources. 2 means probably true. 3 possibly true. Again, down to 6, which means cannot be judged. And we'll also mention the threat level. We use the UK system, ranging from low, highly unlikely attack, up to critical, meaning an attack is expected imminently. It also has plus modifiers, like moderate plus means things are ticking up. Substantial means slightly receding.
Right. So as we go through each piece of news, we'll give you those flags, the reliability, the confidence. This way, you'll immediately understand the credibility and the potential impact. It helps you connect the dots yourself without getting, lost in all the details. Okay, let's kick things off with the bottom line up front, the BLUF from the executive summary. This gives us that rapid overview of the top 3 global themes from July 30th. First, we're seeing continued global economic and geopolitical volatility. This is largely driven by escalating trade wars and, what are proven to be quite fragile ceasefires.
Fragile is definitely the word.
Second, humanitarian crises are deepening, particularly in Gaza and parts of Africa. We're talking alarming increases in malnutrition and displaced populations.
Just awful situations there.
And finally, climate-related emergencies. They're amplifying worldwide, directly impacting everything from energy markets and critical infrastructure right through to the tourism sector.
Yeah, and building on that high-level view, the report really spotlights 3 crucial themes. First, tariff escalation and supply chain realignment.
Oh.
We saw the U.S. impose these sweeping new tariffs, Brazil, India, South Korea, Malaysia, even hitting copper specifically. And that immediately triggered urgent negotiations. The impact was, pretty clear.
How so?
The MSCI Asia-Pacific Index fell 1.5%. Currencies like the Korean won and the euro weakened. This wasn't just, dry economic news. It's a massive signal for businesses everywhere to rapidly reevaluate their supply chains, like now.
Right. A real wake-up call.
Then the second theme, humanitarian crossroads in Gaza and Africa. The situation in Gaza is, frankly, dire. 154 malnutrition deaths reported, WHO warning of famine. That's a level of crisis demanding urgent global attention.
Absolutely.
And in Africa, you've got Nigeria's nurses on a significant strike over conditions, which is a huge issue. And tragically, M23 rebels in the Democratic Republic of Congo killed 169 farmers, just highlighting persistent instability and immense human suffering.
Terrible.
And the third spotlight, climatic and natural disasters, huge impact. A magnitude 8.8 earthquake off Russia triggered Pacific-wide tsunami warnings. That's massive.
Yeah.
Tropical storm Komei forced Shanghai to evacuate a staggering 280,000 people.
280,000. Wow.
Yeah. And on top of that, Chilean scientists are warning 10 of their beaches could just vanish within a decade due to erosion. These events really underscore this growing vulnerability, not just to natural forces, but to their ripple effects on global logistics, infrastructure, everything.
Okay, let's unpack these themes then, region by region, starting with North America. Here, the U.S. seems to be really intensifying trade wars, pushing significant domestic policy shifts. It's putting pressure on allies, changing how diversity initiatives are approached. Meanwhile, Canada's navigating its own economic headwinds and grappling with, well, extreme heat. The overall threat level for North America is moderate plus risk level high.
Right. So starting with the U.S., President Trump announced that 25% tariff on Indian goods, a hefty 50% duty on Brazilian imports, and double duties on copper. That report came with an A2 flag, completely reliable source, information probably true.
Right.
Markets reacted, instantly. Copper prices plunged 70%. Indian and Brazilian equities dipped. What's significant here isn't just the tariffs themselves, but that immediate sharp market response. It signals businesses globally need to reevaluate where their political vulnerabilities lie, and fast.
That 17% copper drop is huge.
It really is.
Yeah.
Also saw the Trump administration launching investigations into university diversity programs and restricting federal funding for AI models perceived as promoting DEI diversity, equity, and inclusion. This carries a B2 flag. Usually reliable source, probably true, but politically charged.
Right, politically charged is key there.
Officials argue these programs discriminate. Critics see it as a political attack. But regardless of intent, this move has immediate financial and reputational risks for universities and potentially tech companies involved in AI.
Now, moving north to Canada.
Canada made a significant diplomatic move. Prime Minister Mark Carney announced Canada will officially recognize the Palestinian state at the UN General Assembly in September. This was flagged A2. Completely reliable source, probably true. It emphasizes their commitment to a two-state solution.
That's a big step, likely to cause ripples.
Definitely. On the economic front for Canada, the Bank of Canada held its policy rate at 2.75%. That's an A1 flag confirmed by independent sources. The decision was mainly driven by uncertainty over those U.S. tariffs and their potential to slow growth. Inflation's projected near 2% by mid-2026. The Canadian dollar weakened immediately, bond yields fell.
And the U.S. Fed, similar story.
Very similar. The Federal Open Market Committee, the FOMC, left the federal funds rate unchanged at 4.25–4.5%. Also an A1 flag. They cited moderate economic growth, though two members actually wanted to cut. So it shows this cautious approach from both central banks, right? Acknowledging these big external pressures.
Yeah, tapping the brakes a bit. And the heat issue.
Critical domestic issue, yeah. Baltimore's City Health Department extended a code red extreme heat alert. Temperatures soared past 100 Fahrenheit, that's over 38 Celsius. This was an A2 flag. Tragically, 5 heat-related deaths already in 2025 in Baltimore alone. It's not just a weather report, it's a stark reminder of escalating public health challenges driven by extreme climate, especially for vulnerable people.
Absolutely. So that's the official picture: policy shifts, market reactions. But the pulse is often felt online, right? How did these developments actually resonate on social media across North America? What was the hearsay?
Well, we saw some really direct reactions. On Twitter. An American steel worker sarcastically thanked President Trump for protecting jobs while making everything expensive. A pretty clear echo of the frustration over tariffs,
Yeah, I can imagine.
On Reddit, specifically the On Politics subreddit, the debates over Canada recognizing Palestine were intense. Lots of praise for Carney's courage, but also real fears voiced about trade retaliation from the U.S.
Divided opinions there.
Definitely. And Canadian diaspora groups on Facebook. They were actively sharing posts urging donations for Gaza hospitals, highlighting that malnutrition crisis we mentioned earlier, connecting the dots. Lastly, a popular YouTube vlog by a U.S. university student criticizing the DEI funding cuts. It got like 1.2 million views. Sparked a huge debate online about academic freedom versus discrimination. Shows how quickly policy hits the public nerve.
It really does. Okay, so shifting across the Atlantic, what does this all mean for Europe? Its fragile recovery seems to be, well, stalling under the weight of U.S. tariffs and climate stress. Governments are seeking diplomatic solutions, but domestic politics clearly reflect mounting pressure. The threat level for Europe is moderate, risk level also moderate.
Right. In Europe, we saw Luxembourg-based satellite operator SES report better than expected earnings. That's an A2 flag, driven by increased European defense spending and new government contracts. They're also planning to invest in the EU's IRS, which is Europe's new secure satellite communication system.
Ah, that's interesting. A push for strategic autonomy.
Exactly. It signals that push, a direct response to global uncertainties. But on the environmental front, there's a stark warning from scientists. Europe's forests are absorbing significantly less euros, about 332 million tons annually. That's a third less than a decade ago.
A third less. Why?
Logging, droughts, pests. It's an A2 flag, and a moderate threat level because it could seriously jeopardize the EU's carbon trading scheme. Big impact on climate goals and regulations.
That's deeply concerning. And the economy?
Pretty sluggish. Europe's economy grew a meager 0.1% in Q2 2025. Germany's output actually shrank. This was an A1 flag. That projected 15% U.S. tariff is expected to cut EU GDP by 0.2%. So you're seeing the euro depreciate, bond yields fall. Significant headwinds Europe is struggling with.
Yeah, 0.1% is barely moving. What about the UK?
Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer was busy on the diplomatic front, held calls with Australian PM Albanese, New Zealand PM Luxon, UAE President Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, that's an A1 flag, discussed Gaza aid, two-state solution support, and concerns about that U.S.-EU trade deal, highlights a coordinated diplomatic effort among allies on both humanitarian and trade issues.
Okay, and moving east. Russia.
Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov dismissed U.S. threats of more sanctions, claimed Russia has developed immunity after years of restrictions.
Oh.
That carries a B2 flag, usually a reliable source, probably true, but it's state propaganda, right? It underscores Russia's long-term strategy to try and insulate its economy from Western pressure.
Right, the immunity claim needs context. Germany.
Germany's finance minister, Lars Klingbeil, publicly criticized the EU-U.S. trade deal, an A2 flag, warned it would weaken growth, lamented the 15% tariff concession. This really reveals internal European friction over the deal. Germany's economic leadership is clearly worried.
Understandable. And the broader EU view.
Deutsche Welle reported on wider unease among EU members about commitments in that deal to buy U.S. energy and AI chips worth $750 billion. This is flag D2. Many see it as undermining Europe's strategic autonomy. It's a critical tension point, closer U.S. ties versus the desire for self-reliance.
That's a lot of complex moving parts for Europe. How is all this playing out in the European social media sphere? What was the buzz?
Pretty active, yeah. On Twitter, environmental activists got #SaveOurForests trending, reacting directly to that concerning report on forests, calling for the EU to curb logging, restore carbon sinks.
Direct action online.
Exactly. On Reddit, the re-up community, users were definitely lamenting that tiny 0.1% GDP growth and fiercely criticizing EU negotiators over the 15% tariff deal with the U.S. Lots of arguments about sacrificing autonomy.
Passionate debate there. Anything positive?
Well, on LinkedIn, professionals were celebrating SES's strong earnings, praising the IRAS program, seeing it as a sign of Europe maybe regaining some competitiveness in the high-tech space sector.
Okay, moving eastward now to Asia. It's grappling with, well, a mix of natural disasters, intensifying trade tensions, political instability, stock markets, currency swinging wildly amid U.S. tariffs, central bank moves. Threat level here is moderate, but the risk level is high.
Yeah, Asian equities declined across the board. That's an A2 flag, mostly due to weak Chinese data and those falling copper prices we talked about. The Bank of Japan, meanwhile, kept its rate at 0.5%, but raised its inflation forecast, which actually strengthened the yen a bit. Shows how even local central bank moves are tied into global commodity and trade shifts.
And the earthquake.
A truly massive one. 8.8 magnitude off Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula. Triggered Pacific-wide tsunami warnings, A2 flag. Waves up to 2 meters hit Japan and Hawaii. Then the Klishevskoye volcano erupted shortly after. Just highlights the region's extreme vulnerability to seismic events and the need for rapid disaster response.
Terrifying. And the trade talks.
South Korea's finance minister led a big delegation to Washington Hyundai, Samsung, Hanwha execs included, trying to finalize a deal before U.S. tariffs hit. That was A2. Malaysia was also negotiating hard to avoid a 25% tariff. The sheer urgency of these talks just underscores how directly U.S. trade policy is hitting Asian economies and their biggest industries.
High-stakes diplomacy. What about regional conflicts? Thailand, Cambodia.
The ceasefire there largely held for a second day, also A2, but there were mutual accusations of minor violations. This followed earlier clashes with 43 deaths, 300,000 displaced. So while the peace is a relief, it's fragile. Underlying border tensions could easily flare up again.
And Myanmar.
Myanmar's military junta established an 11-member election commission, chaired by coup leader Min Aung Hlaing himself, for elections planned in December 2025. This was A2, but crucially a substantial threat level. Raises serious concerns about the legitimacy of any upcoming elections and the junta just digging in deeper.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a free and fair setup. Shanghai.
Shanghai took major action. Relocated 280,000 residents, canceled flights, closed ferries as Tropical Storm Koumei approached, A2 flag.
Yeah.
And they were also preparing for possible tsunami surge from that Russian quake. Multi-hazard preparation. Shows the immense logistical challenge for major coastal cities facing converging climate and seismic threats.
Incredible pressure on them. China's broader strategy.
Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi urged deeper engagement with the U.S., insisting on extending the 90-day tariff truce. That's A2. But at the same time, Chinese banks plan to launch over $1 billion in funds targeting AI and renewables in Southeast Asia. It's a dual approach, right? Try to de-escalate with the U.S. while strategically expanding influence in the region through green investments.
Playing both sides a bit. And India got hit with tariffs, too.
Yes, President Trump announced that 25% tariff on Indian goods, also threatened penalties on Indian companies buying Russian oil. That was flagged B2, usually reliable, probably true, but framed with political rhetoric. He argued India imposes high tariffs on U.S. goods, framed it as part of a broader anti-China strategy. Shows tariffs being used as a multi-purpose tool.
Right, and finally Japan. Political instability.
Yes, Japan's ruling LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party, called a plenary meeting. Party elders are demanding Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba resign after a major election defeat. That's A2. Suggests a potential leadership challenge brewing due to economic malaise, recent scandals. Indicates significant political instability at the top in Japan.
Wow, a lot happening across Asia. What was trending there? What was the hearsay on these critical issues?
On Weibo in China, netizens generally welcomed Wang Yi's call for U.S. engagement, but there was definitely skepticism about trusting Washington after all the tariff escalations. Fool me once.
Understandable. Japan.
On Twitter in Japan, users were actively posting videos of earthquake evacuation drills, praising their early warning systems. Hashtag tsunami warning was trending big time. Strong public focus on preparedness there.
Good to see. Thailand, Cambodia.
On Reddit, Thailand, commenters expressed relief the ceasefire held, but many also criticized both governments for the ongoing border tensions. A kind of nuanced public view, glad for peace, but not happy with the underlying situation.
Okay, let's shift focus now to the Middle East. Diplomatic activity seems to be increasing, but those humanitarian crises are just deepening. Lebanon's Hezbollah firmly resisting disarmament, Turkey expanding energy ties. The threat level is substantial, risk level is high.
Right. U.S. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff visited Israel to discuss the Gaza humanitarian crisis with Israeli and Palestinian officials. That's A2. Aiming to broker a ceasefire, improve aid access. Shows the international pressure to de-escalate and address the severe condition.
Is it having any effect? The situation sounds awful.
It is dire. The report highlights Gaza's Nasser Hospital. A2 flag, severe threat level. Children reportedly so malnourished they literally cannot cry. 53 acutely malnourished kids admitted in just 1 week. 154 malnutrition deaths overall due to aid shortages. It's a critical human tragedy unfolding. Catastrophic impact of conflict and aid blockages.
Just heartbreaking. And Hezbollah?
Hezbollah's deputy leader, Sheikh Naim Qassem, stated flatly that calls for the group to disarm only serve Israel's interests. Insisted Hezbollah won't give up its weapons despite U.S. pressure. That carries a B2 flag, noting it's partisan. But this firm rejection signals continued regional tension, Hezbollah's entrenched role in Lebanon.
No compromise there. What about Syria?
The UN managed to arrange a humanitarian convoy to Syria's Swaida province after getting government permission. That's A2. Follows violence that killed hundreds, displaced 175,000. A U.S.-brokered ceasefire is holding there for now. So this small window for aid offers maybe a glimmer of hope in that devastating, long-running conflict.
A small glimmer is better than none. And Israeli groups speaking out.
Yes, a significant development. Israeli human rights groups, B'Tselem and Physicians for Human Rights Israel, accuse their own government of genocide against Palestinians in Gaza. That's A2. They called for an immediate ceasefire, an independent investigation. Really escalates the legal and moral pressure on the Israeli government from within. Wow, from Israeli groups themselves, that's powerful. And Turkey's move. Turkey announced plans to start delivering natural gas to northern Syria via the Kilis pipeline, starting August 2nd, backed by Azerbaijan. A2 flag. It's a strategic energy move, clearly aimed at strengthening Turkish influence in northern Syria, intertwining energy infrastructure with geopolitical goals.
How are these really sensitive topics resonating with people across the Middle East online?
On Twitter, in Arabic specifically, just heart-wrenching posts from Gaza, empty shells, photos of malnourished children, hashtag Stop the Genocide was trending globally, huge public distress.
Understand.
On YouTube, a Lebanese political commentator's video on Hezbollah's refusal to disarm got over 500,000 views. Comments were sharply split, supporters versus critics. Shows the deep divisions inside Lebanon.
Polarizing issue.
Very. And on Telegram, pro-Syrian government channels were circulating warnings, saying Turkey's gas deliveries could entrench foreign influence in northern Syria. shows a cautious, even suspicious, public response to these regional energy deals.
Okay, let's dive into Africa now. We're seeing economic diversification attempts like gold purchases, but alongside mounting unrest. Nurses striking in Nigeria, rebels killing farmers in Congo, protests in Angola, even court-ordered exhumations in Kenya. Threat level is substantial, risk level high here too.
Yeah, sub-Saharan central banks, Ghana, Tanzania, Nigeria, they've accelerated gold purchases to reduce reliance on the US dollar. That's A2. But analysts are warning that falling gold prices could actually undermine these reserves. Highlights the risks in these diversification strategies.
Hedging bets, but it's still a gamble. Nigeria's nurses.
They initiated a 7-day warning strike. Better pay, conditions,
Yeah.
A2 flag, substantial threat level. Over 42,000 nurses have left Nigeria in 3 years. This strike raises fears of an indefinite action which would threaten public health, exposes a massive brain drain.
42,000, that's staggering. The DRC situation.
The UN Human Rights Office reported M23 rebels killed 169 farmers in eastern DRC while they were camped in their fields. A2 flag, severe threat level, just a devastating act. Threatens to derail a U.S.-brokered peace process. Underscores the extreme violence civilians face there.
Horrific. And Angola.
Protests in Angola over diesel subsidy cuts left at least 22 people dead, dozens injured. A2 flag. The government claims security forces acted in self-defense. Highlights the volatility when governments implement austerity, especially impacting daily costs, can lead to violent backlash.
Deadly consequences. And Kenya.
A Kenyan court ordered the exhumation of bodies. Suspected cult followers who apparently died of starvation in Kilifi County need postmortems, DNA tests. A2 flag. A really disturbing case. Points to significant social vulnerabilities, need for thorough investigations into potential abuses.
How is the public reacting to these significant events across Africa? What's the hearsay?
On Facebook in Nigeria, nurses were actively using hashtag #StrikeForOurLives, sharing stories of overwork, poor pay, gaining thousands of shares, solidarity messages from diaspora communities, widespread support apparent.
Social media amplifying their cause. DRC.
On Twitter in the DRC, activists calling for international sanctions against M23 rebels, sharing graphic images of the massacre, many questioning the effectiveness of UN peacekeeping forces. Real public frustration with the lack of accountability.
Understandable frustration. Angola.
On WhatsApp, Angolan protest videos circulated widely, showing police apparently firing live rounds. Accompanying audio messages describe security forces using excessive force. Shows how quickly sensitive, potentially incriminating information can spread and shape opinion.
Okay, let's dive into Latin America. Countries facing U.S. sanctions, tariffs, alongside environmental, political challenges. Central banks are adopting caution, economies expanding modestly. Threat level is moderate, risk level moderate.
Right. The U.S. sanctioned a Brazilian Supreme Court Justice, Alexandre de Moraes, allegedly for targeting pro-Bolsonaro businessmen, and imposed that 50% tariff on Brazilian goods we mentioned, B2 flag. Brazil's bracing for impact on $28 billion of exports, a targeted U.S. foreign policy move with immediate economic impact.
Big hit for Brazil. Environmental concerns.
Scientists warn 10 Chilean beaches could literally vanish within a decade. Coastal erosion, rising sea levels, infrastructure encroachment. A2 flag. Authorities are tracking 67 beaches. Shows the immediate visible impact of climate change on specific places and their economies, especially tourism.
Vanishing beaches. That's stark. Costa Rica.
7 Costa Rican ministers, including the VP and finance minister, resigned to run for office in the 2026 general election. A2 flag. Signifies a major political realignment, the start of a competitive election cycle there.
Getting ready for 2026 already. Mexico's economy.
Expanded 0.7% in Q2 2025, driven by manufacturing, services, A2 flag. But economists warn of recession risk if U.S. tariffs expand further. Highlights Mexico's economic vulnerability, particularly its close ties to U.S. trade policy.
Walking a tightrope there. Brazil Central Bank.
Left its Selic rate unchanged at 15%. A2 flag. Cited U.S. tariff uncertainty, high inflation expectations, indicated rates would stay high. Mirrors that cautious approach we saw in North America, right? Central banks prioritizing stability amidst these big external economic pressures.
Consistent theme. What are the voices from Latin America saying online? The hearsay.
On Twitter in Brazil, supporters of former President Bolsonaro were celebrating the U.S. sanctions on Judge Moraes. Opponents criticized it as foreign interference in Brazil's judiciary. Shows the deep political polarization there.
Very divided. Chile.
On Reddit Regional, users were mourning the potential loss of iconic beaches, demanding stricter coastal protection policies, a direct public call for action against climate change impacts.
People demanding solutions.
On Facebook in Mexico, lots of posts from SMEs, small and medium enterprises, urging customers to buy local, a direct response to those new U.S. tariffs threatening their exports.
Okay, finally, Oceania Pacific. Australia pursuing significant social policy reforms, facing climate threats, engaging in regional diplomacy. Monetary policy remains cautious. Threat level here is low, risk level moderate.
Right. Australia expanded its ban on social media access for under 16s to include YouTube, A2 flag, cited harmful content, mental health concerns. PM Albanese urged parental support. Shows that growing global trend of governments intervening in social media access for minors.
Interesting move. And student debt.
Australian lawmakers passed legislation cutting outstanding student loans by 20%. A2 flag. Provides $16 billion in relief, aimed squarely at easing cost of living pressures. Significant economic policy with direct financial relief.
That's a big relief package, the Reserve Bank.
RBA Deputy Governor Andrew Hauser welcomed Q2 inflation falling to a 4-year low, but warned more evidence is needed before cutting rates. Labor market still tight. A2 flag. That cautious stance again. Inflation improving, but central banks remain vigilant.
Prudent approach. Diplomacy.
Call between Australian PM Albanese and UK PM Starmer. Both expressed concern over Gaza, affirmed support for a two-state solution. A2 flag. Also discussed trade. AU key. The security pact with the U.S. Highlights ongoing diplomatic alignment between key Western allies on humanitarian and strategic issues.
And how are these developments landing with the public down under? Hearsay from Oceania Pacific.
On Instagram in Australia, education influencers were celebrating that 20% student debt cut, posting stories about financial relief, improved mental health. Shows the immediate positive impact.
Good news travels fast there. Social media ban.
On Twitter, Australian parents were debating it. Some praised protecting kids, others argued for digital literacy, not outright bans. Divided public opinion like you'd expect.
Yeah, complex issue. Anything else catching attention?
Interestingly, on TikTok, videos of heavy rain and evacuations in Shanghai, posted by Chinese tourists, went viral among Australian viewers. Seemed to raise awareness of climate risks abroad, connecting those regional events to broader global climate concerns.
Fascinating how interconnected everything feels.
It really is. And that's what's truly fascinating here, how these seemingly separate events are deeply interconnected. Intelligence isn't just about listing events. It's about understanding how they interact, create ripple effects across the globe.
Right. So if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
what are the key correlations we really need to pay attention to from this report?
Well, for one, the direct link between tariff measures and currency movements. It's stark. U.S. tariffs hit India and Brazil. The rupee dropped 0.8%, the real 1.2% intraday, almost instantly. Contrast that with South Korea seemed close to a deal, and the won strengthened 0.5%. The implication. Exchange rates are now immediate signals of negotiation success or failure. The market reacts within hours.
Real-time feedback. What else?
Then, trade tensions and commodity prices. That copper plunged 17% after Trump's tariff announcement. For businesses, this means industrial users might rush to buy, lock in lower prices. Mining companies, facing serious margin pressure, forced to reevaluate production fast.
The significant implications for those sectors.
Absolutely. It's also striking to see the correlation between a humanitarian crisis and energy markets. Gaza's malnutrition crisis, calls for ceasefire, coincided with a 3% rise in Brent crude prices. Why? Traders anticipated potential regional escalation. Supply disruptions shows how humanitarian crises, seemingly local, can indirectly drive global commodity markets through increased geopolitical risk premiums.
Wow, that's a connection maybe not everyone makes.
Exactly. Another key one, interest rate decisions and equity markets. The Bank of Canada's hold, Brazil's rate pause, both signaled caution amid tariff uncertainties. This led directly to Canadian bank stocks falling 1%, Brazil's Bovespa index dropping 0.7%. It implies central bank caution isn't just about inflation, it's a strong signal of slowing growth. Investors see that and rotate into more defensive sectors.
Market reading the tea leaves from the central banks.
Precisely. Finally, the direct link between natural disasters and insurance payouts. That Kamchatka earthquake, Tropical Storm Komay, projected to trigger over US $2 billion in insurance claims for Pacific insurers, property damage evacuations, underscores the critical need for robust risk models for insurers and comprehensive disaster response plans for businesses in high-risk zones. The financial impact is immediate and substantial.
Okay, this raises the crucial question then. So what does all this mean for you, our listener? How can you apply this knowledge?
Right, practical application. Based on this intelligence, we've outlined some key recommended actions. First, and this is high priority, especially if you're involved in procurement or supply chain management, diversify supply chains. Actively map your supplier networks. Seriously, consider shifting sourcing to more neutral jurisdictions, maybe parts of Southeast Asia, Africa. Negotiate long-term contracts to build resilience against these tariff shocks.
Proactive steps there. What's next?
Second, medium priority, perhaps for chief sustainability officers or those in humanitarian efforts. Implement humanitarian due diligence programs. Partner with trusted NGOs for relief in places like Gaza, Africa. Conduct thorough due diligence on your own suppliers, ensure ethical practices, avoid human rights abuses, allocate CSR funds effectively to affected regions.
Doing good and managing risk. Makes sense.
Third, another high priority action, especially for CFOs. Hedge commodity and currency exposure. Given the volatility we've just discussed, securing hedging instruments, futures, options is vital. Diversify your currency holdings. Adjust pricing models to reflect potential import cost hikes, essential for financial stability.
Protecting the bottom line. Got it.
Next, medium priority, maybe for chief operating officers, strengthen disaster preparedness. Update those business continuity plans, especially for facilities in coastal or seismically active regions. Invest in early warning tech, if applicable. Ensure supply chain redundancy to mitigate disruptions from natural events.
Building resilience across the board. And the last one.
Finally, maybe a low priority, but still important, perhaps for CEOs or public affairs teams. Engage in strategic policy advocacy. Consider joining industry coalitions. Advocate for balanced trade policies, climate mitigation measures. Engage with governments to support carbon sink restoration. Oppose purely punitive tariffs that harm business without clear strategic gain.
Okay, great actionable insights there. Do not forget to follow us on YouTube and Spotify. Also, like, share, and comment. We really do look forward to hearing your opinion. This is it for today. Enjoy the rest of your week.
And as we wrap up today's deep dive, maybe consider this: how every local decision, every tariff, every natural disaster ripples across the globe, impacting economies, communities, even our daily lives. In a world that's interconnected, the most valuable currency might just be well-informed awareness.